The body doesn't just digest food, it reads it. Eating the right foods in the right way communicates with genes, hormones, and the nervous system. Issues like brain fog, anxiety, fatigue, poor sleep, hormone imbalance, and low immunity often trace back to subtle metabolic disruptions triggered by poor eating habits. When and how you eat, mindful versus stressed, day vs night, affects how your body utilizes nutrients, impacting neurochemistry, digestion, and cellular repair. Certain foods and ways of eating enhance brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, serotonin, dopamine, and vagus nerve tone, actively rewiring the brain for healing. Eating with intention, gratitude, and presence activates coherence between heart, brain, and gut, triggering a cascade of biochemical alignment and repair. From the moment we take our first conscious breath, our body begins a dynamic conversation with the world around us, not just through what we see, hear, or feel, but through what we consume. And yet, one of the most overlooked dialogues we participate in each day is the one between food and our biology. Food is not merely fuel for our systems, it is a complex form of information. Every bite carries messages, encoded instructions, biological signals that shape who we are, not just physically, but emotionally, cognitively, energetically. This understanding takes us beyond the limited view of calories in versus calories out. In that outdated paradigm, food is a unit of energy, like a battery to be burned. But the human body is not a machine. It is a living field of intelligent, self-regulating consciousness, constantly adapting, healing, sensing. So when you eat, your body doesn't just metabolize substances, it reads them. It scans each molecule for meaning, looking for cues. Is this friend or foe? Is this an agent of inflammation or regeneration? Is this supporting our survival, or is it demanding a stress response? Within seconds of consumption, the food you eat begins to interact with receptors in your mouth and gut. These receptors aren't passive. They're highly sensitive instruments tuned to detect proteins, fats, carbohydrates, phytonutrients, and toxins. When a certain type of nutrient enters your system, it activates entire biochemical cascades. For instance, a healthy fat like omega-3 does more than provide energy. It triggers anti-inflammatory gene expression, supports cellular membrane integrity, and even influences the fluidity of the neurons in your brain. A single bite, when understood correctly, becomes a coded message to the trillions of cells within you. Consider your gut, often referred to as the second brain. It contains over 100 million neurons and produces more than 90% of your serotonin. It is lined with receptors that respond directly to the food you eat, sending messages not just through your digestive tract, but through your nervous system into your brain and across your hormonal network. If you consume foods rich in natural prebiotics and polyphenols like garlic, onion, or blueberries, you're not just feeding your microbiome, you're reprogramming your gut-brain axis. You're sending signals to your limbic system, the seat of memory and emotion, telling it, we are safe. We are supported. We are in balance. Now consider the opposite. When we eat ultra-processed foods, high in refined sugars, oxidized oils, or synthetic additives, the body doesn't just absorb something bad. It interprets those compounds as threats. The immune system is activated, inflammatory markers rise, cortisol surges. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis is triggered, and the body shifts from healing mode into defense mode. What was meant to be nourishment has now become a neurological event, a chemical alarm that disrupts homeostasis and subtly rewires the brain toward fear, scarcity, and fatigue. So the question is no longer just what are you eating? The question is, what message are you sending to your biology? Are you sending a signal of coherence, of nourishment, of regenerative intelligence? Or are you sending a message of stress, confusion, and breakdown? And the body listens to that message with reverence. Your genes respond to food not as static elements, but as switchboards. In the presence of certain nutrients, genes responsible for repair, detoxification, mitochondrial function, and neuroplasticity get turned on. This is the science of nutrigenomics, the direct influence of food on gene expression. For instance, sulforaphane in broccoli sprouts a master regulator of detox and cellular resilience, curcumin and turmeric modulates inflammatory pathways and supports neurogenesis. Magnesium-rich foods influence GABA receptors and quiet the overactive mind. These aren't just chemical interactions. They are instructions being delivered to the blueprint of your biology. And it doesn't end at the physical. Because the way you eat, your emotional state, your presence, your intention also affects how these messages are received. If you consume the most nutrient-dense food in the world, but eat it in a state of stress, resentment, or urgency, your body will still read it as a mixed signal. Digestion slows, absorption weakens, blood flow is redirected away from the gut, and stress hormones interfere with nutrient utilization. The information gets garbled. But when you eat in a state of coherence, where your heart, brain, and gut are aligned in a rhythm of calm receptivity, the body amplifies its ability to receive and translate food as a healing message. You activate the parasympathetic nervous system, digestive enzymes flow, nutrient uptake improves, blood zinc improves. The messages become clear. This is safety. This is nourishment. This is evolution. Food, then, is a form of communication. Not just with your organs, but with your emotional memory, your energetic field, and your very identity. Because you're not just what you eat. You are what your body believes about what you eat. The cells that make up your brain, your heart, your eyes, your immune system, they are built from the molecular messages carried by the food you choose daily. They are the physical consequence of a conversation you initiate 3, 4, 5 times per day. In this light, food becomes a tool for intentional transformation. It becomes a vehicle for inner alignment, a bridge between the seen and the unseen, a key that unlocks the dormant intelligence within you. When you begin to approach food with reverence, with curiosity, with awareness that each bite is an opportunity to shift your biology and consciousness, then eating becomes not just a habit, but a sacred act of creation. And so the future of healing is not only in what we consume, but in how we interface with that consumption. Food as information means that each meal is an instruction manual, a coded frequency, a message from nature itself, reminding your body of its original design to heal, to balance, to thrive. When the body starts whispering through subtle symptoms, low energy, restless sleep, digestive discomfort, brain fog, we often dismiss them as stress, aging, or just life. But those whispers, if ignored, become signals. And those signals, if misunderstood, become patterns. What begins as a mild imbalance can quietly evolve into a network of dysfunctions, often hidden beneath the surface of normal labs and polite smiles. These are the 12 hidden health problems, silent disruptors rooted not in isolated disease, but in chronic inflammation and neurophysiological dysregulation. Inflammation is not the enemy. It is the body's first responder designed to protect and repair. But in a world of poor food choices, chronic stress, environmental toxins, and circadian misalignment, this ancient system becomes hijacked. Instead of resolving damage, it loops. Instead of defending, it begins to degrade. And when inflammation persists, it becomes the invisible architect of imbalance in nearly every organ system. The body is still intelligent. It still responds. But now it's responding to a false signal defending against. This internal state of unresolved inflammation often begins in the gut. The gut lining, which is only one cell thick, serves as a highly sensitive filter between the outside world and your internal environment. When processed foods, pesticides, alcohol, or chronic stress wear away at this lining, permeability increases. Molecules that were never meant to enter your bloodstream now leak. The immune system responds with inflammation, and over time, this creates the perfect storm for food sensitivities, autoimmune reactions, and chronic low-grade immune activation. Now imagine this happening beneath your awareness for years. The result isn't just digestive discomfort, it's a cascade that affects the brain. Cognitive fog, poor memory retention, low motivation, and even symptoms of anxiety or depression often trace back to neuroinflammation. The blood-brain barrier, which is meant to protect your central nervous system, becomes more permeable under inflammatory stress. Microglial cells, the immune cells of the brain, become activated, and over time, this leads to neural fatigue, disordered neurotransmitter signaling, and reduced synaptic plasticity. You're not just tired, you're inflamed. Many of the so-called invisible health problems people experience today are not mysteries. They're misunderstood expressions of a body stuck in dysregulation. Take chronic fatigue. It's rarely just a lack of sleep or motivation. It's often rooted in mitochondrial dysfunction caused by oxidative stress. Mitochondria are not just the engines of your cells, they are sensors. When bathed in a toxic internal environment, they downregulate energy production. This is the body's attempt to conserve energy in the face of what it interprets as a threat. But to you, it feels like burnout, a body and mind that simply won't activate no matter how much caffeine or motivation you throw at it. Sleep issues often fall into. If you can't fall asleep, stay asleep, or wake up feeling restored, it may not be a problem with your sleep per se. It may be inflammation interfering with your natural rhythms. The hypothalamus, which regulates your circadian clock, is highly sensitive to inflammatory cytokines. Cortisol, your main stress hormone, becomes dysregulated. Melatonin production is suppressed. Your body forgets how to shift into parasympathetic dominance. You lose the biological memory of rest. Even emotional imbalances, feelings of irritability, depression, mood swings can often be traced back to inflammation's subtle hand. Neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine require not only the right amino acid precursors from your diet, but also a cellular environment that supports healthy enzyme function. Inflammatory molecules interfere with these pathways, skewing your brain chemistry before you ever realize it. You feel out of alignment, not because of a lack of willpower or resilience, but because your brain is swimming in a chemistry of chaos. Hormonal issues are another branch of this hidden web. Inflammatory stress disrupts the hypothalamic pituitary axis, affecting the way your brain communicates with your thyroid, adrenal glands, and reproductive organs. The result, low libido, irregular cycles, weight gain, blood sugar imbalances. These are not just aging symptoms. They are messages, coded expressions of systems that are misfiring because the signals are scrambled. Cardiovascular issues, too, can begin long before blood pressure rises or cholesterol spikes. Chronic inflammation damages the endothelium, the delicate lining of your blood vessels. This promotes plaque buildup, reduces nitric oxide signaling, and sets the stage for poor circulation. But when eating is delayed until late evening, after melatonin has started to rise and the body is entering its regenerative phase, the same food can become a source of inflammation and metabolic confusion. Nighttime eating has been shown to impair glucose tolerance, increase fat storage, and disrupt sleep architecture. The body interprets this as a violation of its natural cycle. Beyond the clock, your internal state while eating acts as a powerful modulator of digestion and assimilation. The autonomic nervous system governs whether the body is in a state of fight or flight or rest and digest. When you eat while stressed, distracted, or emotionally agitated, you activate the sympathetic nervous system. This state prepares the body to respond to a threat, not to absorb nutrients. Blood is diverted away from the digestive tract toward the muscles. Stomach acid, bile, and pancreatic enzymes decrease. Peristalsis slows. Even if you consume the most carefully curated, organic, whole food meal, its potential will not be fully unlocked if your nervous system is closed to it. The difference between eating in coherence and eating in stress is not just philosophical, it is physiological. The vagus nerve, which connects the brainstem to the gut, serves as a bidirectional information highway. When you sit down, take a breath, and shift into a state of parasympathetic activation, vagal tone increases. This signals your digestive organs to open, to receive, to process. It also stimulates the release of neurotransmitters like acetylcholine and serotonin, which calm the nervous system and enhance digestive efficiency. This is the true art of nourishment, not just the food itself, but the consciousness with which it is received. Then comes the question of frequency. How often we eat and how long we allow the body to rest between meals. Modern eating culture, shaped by convenience and constant availability, encourages near continuous grazing. A snack here, a latte there, a meal every few hours. While this may feel normal, it rarely gives the body the metabolic pause it needs to repair, detoxify, and reset. Every time you eat, insulin is released. Insulin is not just a blood sugar hormone. It is a master regulator of fat storage, cellular growth, and inflammation. Frequent eating leads to chronic insulin elevation, which over time can impair insulin sensitivity, disrupt mitochondrial function, and promote inflammatory states. When space is created between meals, when you allow your body to shift from the fed state, anabolism, into the fasted state, catabolism, something remarkable happens. The body begins cellular housekeeping. Damaged proteins are recycled. Old cells are removed through autophagy. Inflammatory signals decrease. Growth hormone increases. The body moves into a state of inner refinement, activating a deeper intelligence that cannot be accessed when constantly digesting. This is why time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting, when done consciously, is not just a trend. It is a return to biological rhythm. It reminds the body that it is safe to rest, to clean, to regenerate. Yet frequency is not about starvation or rigidity. It is about awareness. There are moments when nourishment is needed, when the body asks for replenishment. But there are also moments when what the body truly needs is silence. Just as the mind requires space between thoughts to perceive truth, the body requires space between meals to remember its own wisdom. Constant stimulation, whether through food, media, or thought, leads to noise. Intermittent stillness leads to clarity. The interplay between timing, state of mind, and frequency is not about perfection. It is about alignment. When you begin to eat not just based on habit, hunger, or emotion, but in resonance with your body's rhythms and needs, you initiate a powerful shift. Digestion improves. Sleep deepens. Energy becomes more stable. Mood stabilizes. And perhaps most profoundly, your relationship with food transforms. It is no longer transactional. It becomes relational. Each meal becomes a point of connection, a moment where biology, awareness, and time collapse into one single act of presence. The brain is not a fixed structure. It is a living, breathing field of electrical patterns, chemical signals, and deeply plastic architecture that is constantly responding to what you think, how you feel, and most importantly, what you feed it. While we often view nutrition through the lens of physical health, its most profound influence may be on the shape and function of the brain itself. Nutrition doesn't just support the brain, it activates neural pathways, fuels the formation of synapses, and dictates whether your brain is in a state of growth or degeneration. This is the essence of neuroplastic nutrition, using food as a tool to reshape your brain's structure, chemistry, and potential. Every thought you think and every emotion you feel is supported or disrupted by the nutrients that cross your blood-brain barrier. But it begins long before cognition. It begins at the cellular level. Your brain is composed of nearly 100 billion neurons and an even greater number of glial cells that form the energetic scaffolding for learning, memory, and awareness. These cells are highly metabolic and extremely sensitive to oxidators. Their health depends on a steady supply of nutrients that do more than fuel. They instruct. They signal the brain to adapt, repair, and grow. One of the most powerful ways food reshapes the brain is through its effect on neurotrophic factors, proteins that support the survival, development, and function of neurons. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BNF, is among the most important. It is often described as a miracle grow for the brain. High levels of BDNF are associated with enhanced learning, emotional resilience, faster recovery from injury, and greater synaptic plasticity. Low levels, conversely, are linked with depression, anxiety, cognitive decline, and even neurodegenerative diseases. Certain foods directly upregulate BDNF expression, acting as activators of your brain's capacity to evolve. Omega-3 fatty acids, particularly DHA, found in wild-caught fatty fish, walnuts, and flax seeds, are structural components of neuronal membranes. They improve membrane fluidity, allowing for more efficient synaptic signaling. But beyond that, they increase BDNF levels and reduce neuroinflammation, two key factors in both short-term cognitive clarity and long-term brain health. Curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, not only acts as a powerful antioxidant, but also crosses the blood-brain barrier and increases BDNF. Polyphenols found in blueberries, green tea, and cacao activate signaling pathways involved in neurogenesis and protect neurons from oxidative damage. These compounds are not isolated chemicals. They are parts of living systems. When consumed in whole food form, they carry with them a spectrum of cofactors in biological intelligence that the body recognizes and uses efficiently. These aren't just nutrients, they're instructions. Each time you consume them, your brain is being guided to build new networks to silence inflammation, to increase coherence between regions of the brain responsible for memory, decision making, and emotion. But nutrition affects more than structure. It profoundly alters brain chemistry. Your brain functions through a delicate balance of neurotransmitters. These are the chemical messengers that determine your state of mind, your ability to focus, your emotional landscape. Serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, GABA. Each of these plays a role in how you perceive your world, and the raw materials for these transmitters come directly from your diet. Tryptophan, a precursor to serotonin, is found in protein-rich foods like turkey, eggs, and seeds. Tyrosine, the building block of dopamine, comes from foods like almonds, avocados, and chicken. But the presence of these amino acids alone is not enough. Their conversion into neurotransmitters depends on B vitamins, magnesium, iron, and a balanced gut microbiome. It's a symphony, and every element of your diet plays a note. A disrupted or inflamed gut, for example, can impair the production of neurotransmitters. Over 90% of serotonin is made in the gut, not the brain. When the gut lining is damaged or when the microbiome is imbalanced, this production slows. But when the gut is nourished with prebiotic fibers, fermented foods, and anti-inflammatory compounds, it produces not just neurotransmitters, but also short-chain fatty acids that directly influence brain health. The gut and brain are in constant dialogue. Neuroplastic nutrition is the practice of feeding both, knowing that the brain cannot function in isolation from the body. Timing and context also matter. Certain nutrients have a greater impact on brain function when consumed at the right time. Consuming carbohydrates from whole food sources like sweet potatoes or fruit in the evening can help with serotonin production and support melatonin synthesis, enhancing sleep quality. A protein-rich breakfast supports dopamine and acetylcholine pathways, promoting alertness and focus during the day. The rhythm of eating creates a rhythm in neurotransmission, and this rhythm shapes the oscillations of thought and emotion. But beyond biochemistry lies something even more powerful, the energetic state that food creates within the brain. Foods that are rich in life force, those that are minimally processed, organically grown, and consumed with awareness, carry a vibrational frequency that the body recognizes as. This harmony is not measured on a label, but it is felt in the clarity of your thoughts, in the calmness of your nervous system, in the presence you can hold in your daily experience. When food becomes a conscious practice, not just a survival mechanism, the brain responds with coherence. Thought patterns shift, emotional resilience increases, creative insight expands. You are not just feeding the brain, you are feeding consciousness. The power of neuroplasticity lies in the brain's ability to reorganize itself based on the input it receives. That input includes what you think and feel, but also what you eat. Every meal becomes an opportunity to guide that reorganization. You are shaping the circuitry of your future focus, your memory, your ability to feel joy, not just by what you learn, but by what you absorb through your cells. Food becomes a tool for remembering who you are beyond patterns of fear, fatigue, or fog. There is a moment, quiet, unmeasured, just before a meal touches your lips. In that pause, something ancient stirs, something far deeper than hunger. In that space lives a forgotten understanding, a knowing that food is not merely fuel, not merely sustenance, but an exchange of energy, intention, and life force. When eating becomes a ritual, not a routine, the body shifts, the chemistry shifts. The energy of the food and the energy of the one receiving it begin to synchronize. It is here in this moment of connection that true nourishment begins, not in the mouth, not in the stomach, but in the field of consciousness that surrounds the act of eating it. Every culture that has ever honored the body and the earth has included rituals around food. Not out of superstition, but because they recognize that food carries vibration, memory, and information. These rituals, whether a blessing, a moment of silence, a shared prayer, or an offering, were ways of aligning the human energy system with the energy of the earth, the sun, the rain, and the unseen intelligence that orchestrates growth in life. To eat without ritual is to interrupt that alignment. It is to consume without receiving. Science now confirms what ancient traditions have always known, that the state of the nervous system at the moment of eating determines not only how well food is digested, but how deeply it is integrated. When you approach food unconsciously while scrolling, driving, arguing, or rushing, the body reads this as a stress event. The sympathetic nervous system becomes active, heart rate increases, cortisol rises, digestive capacity weakens. Your body enters a mode of defense, not openness. In this state, even the healthiest food is metabolized with resistance. But when you eat in ritual, with presence, breath, and awareness, the parasympathetic system activates. Your body relaxes. Blood flow increases to the digestive tract. Enzymes and hormones are released in harmony. The body becomes receptive. The vagus nerve, that sacred bridge between your brain and your gut, becomes more electrically conductive. Your cells open like flowers. This is not metaphor. It is biology responding to energy. The body is always listening, and it listens not just to the food itself, but to your relationship with it. When you eat with gratitude, your internal chemistry reflects that gratitude. When you eat with guilt, shame, or judgment, your cells tighten, your gut contracts, and your immune system becomes fused. The energetic tone you bring to the meal becomes part of the meal. It becomes encoded in the molecules being broken down and absorbed. This is the quantum field of nourishment, where mind, body, food, and energy are in constant dialogue. This dialogue also extends to your heart. The heart is not simply a pump. It is a vast electromagnetic field that sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to it. When you enter a coherent heart state through slow breathing, appreciation, or stillness, and you amplify your body's ability to process food as medicine. Heart coherence brings all systems into rhythm. The brain, the gut, the immune system, and the endocrine glands begin to pulse together. This inner synchrony creates a biofield where healing is accelerated and metabolic efficiency increased. Ritual doesn't mean complexity. It means taking a few seconds to acknowledge the life that has been given for your nourishment, whether plant or animal, seed or soil. It means inviting the body into a state of readiness, not urgency. It means shifting your inner climate from distraction to coherence. And when this shift happens, digestion becomes more than a mechanical process. It becomes a sacred act of transformation, turning matter into consciousness, nutrients into clarity, food into life force. There is also a rhythm to be honored. Nature does not operate on constant intake. She moves in cycles. So too should our relationship with food. The earth rests between seasons. Trees rest between harvests. Your body requires moments of pause, of fasting, of stillness between meals. Not as a rule, but as a rhythm. These spaces are where your energy is. In between meals, your cells perform autophagy, your gut resets, and your hormones find their baseline. The energy of rest is just as vital as the energy of consumption. Eating ritually means recognizing not only what to bring in, but when to allow emptiness. Emptiness is not lack, it is potential. It is the field from which intention arises. And when you eat with intention, not to numb, not to distract, but to align, you begin to access food not just as matter, but as vibration. You begin to sense which foods elevate your clarity, which stabilize your emotions, which ground your body. You begin to choose with intuition, not compulsion. Your body speaks louder, not in symptoms, but in signals. You begin to realize that nourishment is not just nutritional, it is relational. It is about how deeply you are willing to engage with the intelligence of what you consume, The ritual of eating is a practice of embodiment. It is the moment where awareness meets biology, where thought becomes physiology, where energy meets form. Each time you sit down to eat, you are telling your body a story. The story of how much you value it, the story of whether you are safe, the story of whether you are present. These stories are not abstract. They are biochemical. They are electrical. They become the tone of your nervous system, the rhythm of your gut, the architecture of your brain, and this tone reverberates beyond digestion. It shapes your day. It shapes your decisions. When the body is fed through ritual, it begins to operate from alignment. You feel more connected to the earth, more attuned to your intuition, more open to joy. You are no longer eating to survive. You are eating to harmonize. Food becomes a bridge between your inner world and the outer cosmos, between the individual and the universal, between the hunger of the body and the hunger of the soul. You are not just eating to live. You are eating to evolve. Every bite you take, every choice you make at the table is more than an action, A message that moves through your nervous system, your cells, your genes, and your consciousness. Food is not passive. It is alive with intention. It speaks to your biology, to your emotional field, and to the quiet architecture of your mind. Whether you realize it or not, you are in a constant dialogue with your body, and that conversation is shaped not only by what you consume, but how you consume. When you begin to view food not as fuel, but as information, encoded with the power to awaken dormant systems, to shift brain chemistry, to recalibrate energy, you step into a deeper understanding of healing. You begin to see that many of the so-called hidden health problems, fatigue, anxiety, poor sleep, cognitive fog, inflammation, are not permanent. They are patterns. Patterns that can be rewritten through timing, through presence, through rhythm, through coherence. You begin to rewire your biology. You begin to eat in a way that speaks the language of the brain, of the gut, of the heart, of the heart. You begin to feed your neuroplasticity, your emotional intelligence, your spiritual clarity. You begin to return to a way of eating that is not mechanical, but intentional, intelligent, and sacred. This is the future of health, not in another pill, not in another plan, but in reclaiming your role as the conscious participant in your body's evolution. Because when food becomes ritual, when nutrition becomes language, and when intention meets biology, you don't just remember who you are.